If you really struggle with coming up with new content ideas or finding content posts to fill up your content calendar, you really need to lean into repurposing existing content. And truly, it doesn't have to be overcomplicated or super time consuming. There are actually three different ways that you can use content from the past to help future you. And those three types are repost, reuse, and repurpose. So, first, diving into reposting. This is the easiest way to use old content, and it's simply tapping into that post and reposting it using the same thing over and over and over again. Truly no editing required. You just need to reschedule that post. So what type of content should you use to simply repost over and over again? This is going to be the most strict when it comes to evergreen content, meaning that that post that you want to repost 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year down the line needs to still be relevant. So go back through your old content, look at your analytics, look at some of those top performing posts, and identify if that post in and of itself will make sense a year down the line. The things that I like to often repost or that I advise other people to repost are going to be like your introduction post when you're reintroducing yourself to your audience, or maybe it's going to be that quote post that you put out every single year. This is personally one that I do. I know there is one quote that performs for me no matter what, and I will simply repost it every couple of months or so. You can do the same thing. And the type of content that you shouldn't use for reposting is going to be anything that's timely in nature. Anything having to do with current affairs, news, updates. And this is also going to include your trending audios if you're creating on Reels or TikTok or anything like that. It's kind of simple. If that post won't make sense 3 months down the line or it won't be relevant again, you don't need to be using it for reposting. So the second type here is actually reusing content. And the way that I like to approach reusing content is we think of reposting as just simply putting it out again. Reusing, you might have to edit it a little bit. You might have to adjust it, give it some zhuzh, fluff it up. But essentially, you're taking that original piece of content and adjusting it ever so slightly to be relevant at the time of posting. So what type of content should you reuse again? The good part about this one is that you can use almost anything. Again, you do want to stick with more evergreen topics, kind of similar to the last one, but it's not nearly as strict because the thing is you can adjust it before posting again. For me, I've kind of tapped into this knowing that like an Instagram carousel, maybe it performed really well 6 months ago, but one of the slides has some advice that no longer works. I can either take that slide out, maybe edit the text a little bit, change the call to action, swap around the slides a little bit, and then publish it again. Or the best part is that you can actually take the messaging from like a trending audio that you used on TikTok. Whatever you said in that TikTok, use that same key point and key idea and use it with a new trending audio. So this type of reusing allows you a bit more flexibility in the content that you can take from the past and reinvent for the future. So what content shouldn't you be using? Again, those things that are super, super, super timely. So while you might be able to use the messaging from an old trend, you won't be able to use that meme that you created when Beyonce dropped her newest album. But maybe you can use the text or the thought or the idea from that meme when she drops her next album. So again, you don't want to use any content that might be dated a couple of months down the line. And the last one we want to touch on here is repurposing. And this is a term you might have heard before, and it's probably one of the most common. So essentially, you are creating a new piece of content, but luckily for you, you're using an old piece of content as the foundation. This is one of the more complex ways of using content from the past, but it's often the most rewarding. In full transparency, it's the foundation of my content strategy. So a few ways that you can accomplish this is by creating a piece of content from one platform and transforming it for another, or expanding a short form piece of content into a longer form piece of content, or even taking that long form piece of content and breaking it down for shorter pieces of content. But the thing you need to know about this is that you're transforming an older piece of content into something new. So let's dive into a couple examples here to really hit this one home. It can be as simple as maybe taking that talking head video that you created on TikTok that might be over a minute and learning how to edit it and maybe shorten it so that you can post it on YouTube Shorts and on Reels. Or maybe you can take an Instagram carousel that you created in Canva and obviously it can go out on Instagram, but you can also take those same slides, download them as an image, and put it out as a TikTok carousel. And similarly, you can take that same exact Canva design, download it as a PDF, upload it to LinkedIn as a document, and it'll provide that same carousel style. And here's the cool part is that you didn't change the text, you didn't change the pictures of that initial carousel. You're simply just downloading it in the format that these platforms prefer, and you're repurposing it on other platforms. Another example here is you can take an Instagram carousel that was super informative, it performed really well for you, and use that as a foundation for like a longer form blog post. Just add some more context, write a little bit more, but use that Instagram carousel as a foundation. Or maybe you have an Instagram feed post where you created this really fun list. It performed really well for you again, and you can take that and maybe expand on it in a written LinkedIn post. Or you can even take each of those points that you made in that list on that original feed post and use each of those as a video, and you've created a reel series. So that's how we can take that shorter form piece of content and expand it into working for us long term and long form. And honestly, my favorite way to repurpose content is to take a long form YouTube video or podcast and transforming it into those shorter pieces of content, really breaking it down and manipulating that original long form piece of content to fit other platforms. So anytime I put out a YouTube video, I'm able to get a podcast out of it. I can get a newsletter, a blog post, show notes, but I can also take a ton of these clips and put them out on Shorts and Instagram and TikTok. And I can take some of the words that I said in that YouTube video and create LinkedIn post and a shorter post for Threads. This practice does take a bit of work and it takes you a bit of time to kind of really refine it, but it's one of those things that is so rewarding, and you really only have to create one original piece of content and everything else can kind of come from it. So I want you to take one or two ideas from this video and really start to incorporate it into your content creation workflow and process. And if you want more concrete examples and more help, I want you to grab the content repurposing guide. You guys can grab it at the link in the description below. But basically, I walk you through how to execute and implement this in your own business and in your own content strategy. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week, and don't forget to hit subscribe.